watching Project Cardboard. On with the video. Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of Project Cardboard. Obviously it's me. And today there's another episode of the Chevy Impala build. There's a new Chevy Impala that I made. I made it in the past, but this is like the more detailed one, you know, the one with the engine and the fan blades and everything. So that's what we're doing today. And today I'm gonna be making the body panels. The body panels for it. So I made the two sides. I made these, and now what we're gonna do is put it together. Like, I have a whole bunch more to do. We're not really gonna be doing much of this exactly, but we have a lot to do with these body panels. We're gonna put the body together. I'm gonna put a picture of it on the screen, a picture of what the finished body should look like. So we're gonna add some more pieces on top, make the hood, make the rear lights, make the headlights, and a few other things like that. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing. Let us jump into it. Alright, let's do this. And that's just what I did. I began to, first of all, I traced it out, the side view of the car, on a piece of paper, and I traced it out onto this cardstock. I got it from an envelope from a printing company, and I like that cardstock, this thick brown paper, because it's not corrugated like regular cardboard, like you might get off an Amazon box or something like that. It's really thin, so you can really easily cut it with scissors and manipulate it how you want it, cut it into shapes without like bending your scissors or hurting your hands or something. So it's really nice cutting it with that. And then I just put clamps on it to really cut out the shape properly. And since my cardboard wasn't quite long enough, I cut out a square and connected two parts of the side view of the car and glued together with a piece of brown paper. And that was pretty good. I had a hard time gluing because the sticker was still there, but after a while I peeled off the sticker and it still worked, and it glued on, and then I had a solid piece for the side of the car. I just rolled it with my X-Acto knife handle to make sure it's all glued together and how it should be. And then I had to score it because, the real car has this like bend in it. It's like this line going across from the tip to the tail, from the front to the tail of the side of the car. And I did that, and then I tested on the side of the car to make sure that the wheel wells and the wheels lined up correctly, because if they don't, and that's a big problem, then I had to start actually putting it together. So this is a template I made because I noticed that the side of the Chevy Impala isn't just flat. It has like a little thing. You'll understand once I make it and I show you me putting it on, but yeah, this is the side part. So yeah, I made that. I'm gonna glue it on. I'm gonna cut out all the pieces, then in a time-lapse sped up video I'm gonna show you me making it. Okay? So yeah. Now we have all of our parts. So then I began to put them all together, and there's a new style that I learned on how to make my models. Instead of like one by one as the demand comes building the part, I just make all the parts all at once, test fitting them as I go. Then I put them all together, and it's more fun that way. More nice, more pleasant to do, and also it's easier to edit it into these videos instead of putting a whole bunch of little clips together of different parts. And that's what I did. Then I started to glue on the hood and the rear trunk of this vehicle, the Chevy Impala 1964. And I bent some of the cardstock and glued it onto the body, and that was what glued the two parts together. As you can see, I used that. I bent a piece of cardboard and put that, and that glued the hood to the side body. Then I put on the trunk same way, just glued it on via some piece of paper bent. And then I just trimmed it to make sure it fits correctly. And I bent another piece of cardstock, glued it up, and stuck it to the cardboard, the two sides. Then I had to start with the side part of the car. And honestly, to be honest, this didn't work quite the way I was expecting it to work. It just didn't come out how I wanted it to look. But it's okay, as you will see, but it just wasn't exactly how I was expecting it to work out. But I glued it on, and it was so long and such a thin part that it was really hard to glue on properly. But in the end it worked, and I made a little jig using my tripod and some glue containers, 2 glue containers, and that let it dry. That held it in place so it didn't move while it was drying. And I just removed them, and I could go on with the build. Test fit, because I always test fit. If you don't, then it won't fit correctly in the end. So I test fitted it, and then I cut out a hole because I wanted this to be a lowrider. I wanted it to sit low on the chassis. I didn't want it to be like high above the chassis, so I cut out a hole so it could accommodate the top of the Chevy small block engine that I made to go on top of there. Then I cut it out. I traced it out. I drew it just off of I just thought about it and I traced it, and I cut it to fit the engine, and I kept going, making revisions, cutting it bigger, cutting it bigger, cutting it bigger, until it got to the correct size that I wanted it to be at. Then I test fitted and kept doing that until I thought that it would fit correctly. And then, as you can see, now the engine pokes out to the top of the hood, and the body rests slightly lower on the chassis, more how I wanted it. And I think it's looking pretty good so far. And the engine, it accommodates the engine properly. And then I went on to further detailing the body. And you might notice that one part of this was not covered, at least I don't think it was, because I lost some footage, guys. I lost some footage, of me making the lights for the car, which is really unpleasant. It's horrible to lose footage, but it happens sometimes. So I don't think there's footage of me making the lights, but I did make the bumper and parts of the windshield, and that's what you're going to see now. So I made the windshield. The windshield, it's pretty simple. Of course, I don't use plastic in my models or anything. I like to just keep the palette, the nice brown color palette of cardboard. But I just cut out 2 like V-shaped pieces of cardboard and glued on the sides. And then I just made a line of cardboard. I cut out a strip, scored it in the middle, bent it at the score, and glued it in between those 2. And that was basically the windshield. Later on, I'll come and I'll add the reflectors and some other more little details on there that will have to be there in the end. But for now, that's just all I did. With the cardboard found, I continued the build of the bumper. I cut out, this wasn't the nicest cardboard, but that's fine because I covered it with some nice cardboard afterwards. But I cut out the bumper, I cut out a strip of cardboard, then I bent that strip at the sides. I cut it to the right thickness, of course, first, and smoothed it out. Then I just test fitted it on there, bent the edges with a ruler, and tried to glue it in there and see what it would look like. Then I could go on to detailing the bumper and adding the lights and a few other parts. I don't know what they're called, but there was a few other parts on there, like these 2 strips that I made and glued there. Then I put the lights on. I'm putting on a light right now. I glued it onto the side, and then I went on to do the other side. And then I went on to making the grid. It had like a grid on it. And it's usually really unpleasant to cut out these little strips, but if you have a nice sharp blade, it's pretty easy, and it's pretty satisfying to just cut out a lot of those thin strips. Just slide the knife across and make a bunch of thin strips. And I made those, and then I cut out a square of cardboard and began to glue them on. It began to glue all of these strips onto the cardboard. The strips were all a little longer than they had to be so that I could cut them down to size. And if we put on the body, then you can see that it looks really nice, at least so far. So far so good. I'm thinking I might put up like a lowrider like that. So it's at an angle, not quite flat. So far it's looking pretty okay. You can see the engine under. It looks pretty detailed. So there's a lot more we have to do. Of course, we have to put the insides and the dashboard and everything, and the flares on the side of the fenders, I think, and a few other things. We're definitely going to find something else to do because with a build, it's never fully done. So, yep, let us go on. The only problem is this wheel. It's at an angle because the suspension model, whatever, did you see there? It's not proper, so I'm going to fix that. I'll do that off camera, but it should be fixed next time you guys see it. Alright everybody, thank you for watching this episode of Project Cardboard, and peace! See you later.